Are you struggling with creating boundaries in your Christian dating relationship? If you are, this is the video for you, and we're going to talk about that today. So let's get into it. Hey, it's Desiree. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you see anything that you like, or you find something that someone else may like or need, please like, subscribe, and share. Let's talk about these hard conversations. And so, like I said before, we are talking about boundaries today. And I want to give you guys a different perspective. You guys often hear from my perspective, but this time I want to show the perspective of my friends. So these are friends that I have in ministry and just my inner circle, and my husband, who obviously is in my inner circle. And so they're going to help you guys get a different perspective and really learn how to navigate boundaries in a Christian relationship. So let's get into it.
So, on the basis that this is dating, I feel like it's okay for you to state your boundaries, but if you have the intentions of being in a relationship, you have to come to the conclusion that things have to be not 50-50, but almost like 100-100. Like, you have to hear both sides of each individual. So boundaries are okay, but setting the standards for everything based off one person, I feel like could be a recipe for disaster. So in my humble opinion, in my experience of dating, setting all the boundaries from one person's perspective, I feel like can be harmful to a potential relationship. So with that said, it's okay to state what you feel like your boundaries are. Let the other person state what they feel like their boundaries are, or where they feel like they want to go with it, and you have to meet in the middle. But if you're trying to establish what I feel like is maybe dominance from the beginning, from either side, it's just not okay. So, conversation. What? Communication. That's it. Conversation, communication. All that is key. It's very key in dating. It has to be at the forefront. First and foremost, it has to be at the very the beginning of that, because if one person again this is how it's going to be, we're dealing with me, this is it, there's no other side to it, I can see it leading down the wrong road.
Well, I feel like as a Christian man, I feel like if a woman set all the boundaries, you can respect her decision, but don't let her get control of that early on. I would be okay with it. It just had to be a mutual understanding, and just if she come up with a list of boundaries, then also you should have some as well, for you guys to be on the same page.
So, as a Christian woman, sticking to boundaries with a romantic partner, the hardest thing about doing that is actually doing it. The way that I work through it is just, I'm glad that I had someone who was of the same mind. And so we were able to remind each other why we were ultimately doing what we were doing, like why we chose the path that we chose.
So, I would say the hardest thing that I had to work through was understanding that you cannot make these boundaries work with someone who's not willing to walk that journey with you. So you're not on the same page morally, spiritually, like it's just not going to work. There's no point in even starting that. And I learned that lesson the hard way, because when I was younger, I was just like, I can change him, or he can adapt to these things, and it really wasn't. I would just come and say, these are my boundaries. One of them being, a major one being, I did not want to have sex before marriage. And I really feel like I ended up failing in that in past relationships, because I was trying to do that celibacy walk with somebody who was not on the same page.
They want to see you walking with you?
What? They were not on the same page as me at all. And so I feel like you just like equally yoked, that's really, really important. And I think that was a hard lesson for me to learn. And a lot of times I was like, why am I failing in this? Why are my boundaries starting out really good and end up a fail? And it was because, again, you're trying to do this with people who are not for you. And we all have discernment. And we choose to sometimes ignore the spirit and do what we want to do. And we're hard-headed at times. And I think that was the hardest thing for me to learn. And that's where I definitely messed up a lot in the past. So, yeah.
That's real.
So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Foster. The hardest thing about sticking to boundaries is clearly defining them and sticking to them. I have learned that with boundaries, standards, and expectations of yourself, what you will no longer tolerate from yourself and what you will no longer tolerate from other people, especially romantically, you have to be extremely firm about it. You just do. You can't be afraid. You can't, be timid about it. The moment somebody does something that you are completely uncomfortable with, especially if it's been expressed before, or even if it hasn't been expressed before, and this is the first offense, you have to be very clear and very upfront and call it out. And even sometimes, if it gets to a point where you've already expressed maybe a couple times a specific boundary and, it continues to happen, one, don't allow that person to continue to do it again. But if they do it again and kind of make it a habit, I think that it is very important to reevaluate what privileges maybe you need to revoke, because access to you, access to your time, your effort, your energy, all of that is a privilege. So, whether you need to revoke certain privileges, whether you need to completely cut off, whatever it is always easier said than done. But boundaries, I learned you got to be firm and you got to follow through with it. Otherwise, you won't take yourself serious and the other person won't take yourself serious.
Boundaries were difficult for me in the past, depending on who I dealt with. Depending on the person that I felt like I was going to be in a relationship with. Some boundaries were easy to establish because, honestly, I wasn't that interested in the person. I'm sorry. Is that wrong to say?
Keep going. It's the truth. Be honest.
But, when I get to the point when I got to the point that I was dealing with somebody that I saw as my potential partner in life, boundaries were easier to understand. They were easier to deal with because this was the foundation for the future. So I would say, honestly, it really depends on the person that you're dealing with. Whether it's a actual relationship, a situationship, or whatever you may find yourself in, boundaries are necessary. And honestly, in my experience, it's easier when you're dealing with somebody who you actually see yourself in the future with.
So you're talking about me. It was easy with me because I'm your wife.
Because she's my wife.
I say that bringing up boundaries is not a hard thing for me, a difficult thing for me as a woman. If I'm being pursued and if the guy has already come to me and declared their intention, then generally we are of the same mind if I'm even on that level with you. If it's some random person on the street that's just trying to holler, it's all good. We don't even need to go there. But if it's someone that I'm actively speaking to, I think that being honest is number one, is the first key. So just being able to be candid and say, hey, look, if you are interested in dating me, I am being abstinent. I am not doing this. I am not doing that, because if that person is for you, they'll understand that. And you can weed them out that much faster.
Well, I'll say past me, I didn't have no boundaries. I ain't gonna lie to you. But now, I guess it depends on your relationship with God and everything. You have to be honest at the beginning. with boundaries. Boundaries definitely set the tone of a relationship. It creates a healthy relationship, and if a person has potential, I believe God would definitely will let you know if that person is for you throughout the time. But I'll say at the beginning, you really just have to be honest with that.
So they were extremely hard for me because, again, I was trying to work it out, or make it work. I should say, work it out, make it work with people who were not on the same page spiritually as me. That was one reason why it was really hard to bring up these boundaries, because I already knew they were on the same page and they weren't going to want to do that. They were like, "Oh, that's cute, but this is what I'm doing." I think another reason why it was hard, when I really would like somebody and I would really want to keep them, and I would be afraid that if I told them, you know, I have this boundary around celibacy, that they wouldn't want to stay. And I know as I got older, that got less and less and less. But I would say being younger and starting dating, that was a fear of mine, where it's like, well, I don't want to, you know, be prude or look like I'm not as fun as my peers or whatever, because I had stricter boundaries. So yeah, that was a big piece of it that made me kind of fearful at the beginning. It's like, is this person gonna stay? But as I got older, I got more confident in my boundaries and started to make better decisions on who I was choosing to spend my time with. And I feel like as my choices got aligned more with what I was doing and who I was spiritually, and it was more of an equally yoked situation, setting those boundaries and sticking to them, and having a partner that had boundaries as well and was sticking to them, and we could work together in a partnership, that was beautiful. And just realizing that that was possible, and it was just worth the journey, worth the wait, all that good stuff. So yeah, this is my person. But yes. So yeah, that's how I feel.
Eyes waited.
Oh my gosh.
Definitely in the past, they were extremely hard for me because, one, I didn't really understand what that meant. And then two, whenever I would get to a space or to a point where I was trying to stick to something, it would still kind of fizzle out because, you know, I would do anything and everything to compromise myself. I always felt like I had to shrink myself. I had to shift, shape, and bend just for the person I was in relationship with, just to like me or to stay with me, because I was operating out of a place of fear or desperation, right? And so now I'm in a space, even though I'm in an unmarried season right now, and really focusing on my purpose. However, I've been afforded the opportunity to be able to practice setting up boundaries with different people that's been placed in my life. Rather that's, you know, making sure people don't yell at me, or making sure people don't curse at me or talk to me badly, or, you know, as far as if I hang out with a guy, you know, making sure that there are certain things that, listen, don't touch me, don't comment, don't do none of that. So now it's starting to become easier for me because I have this standard. I've been able to clearly define what it is for myself and what I want for myself. And so now I'm getting comfortable with being able to speak up. And so the next question is, how would you advise bringing up boundaries to a potential partner? I would say definitely as they come. I don't think that, you know, it's something we should go in and saying, like, you know, being in a billboard advertisement of like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. I think it's just a matter of, as you continue to get to know this person as a friend or in a dating / collecting data stage, you know, as things happen, that's when I think that you should bring it up and allow that person the grace to correct themselves, to figure it out, and, you know, make it very clear, if you cross this line again, if you cross this line, I know you didn't know, but if you cross this line another time, then this is going to be a problem, and being able to stick to it.
So first and foremost, it's the intimacy thing. You're in a relationship with somebody, you're not married, so you have to kind of check that at the front door. If you want to be in accordance with what is right. Secondly, it's the honesty thing. Like, nowadays, it's like, man, situationships, having these faux relationships, these
Friends with
drink,
benefits.
friends with benefits, whatever you want to call it. You kind of have to check that stuff at the door. If you're really wanting to establish a deep, real, meaningful relationship with somebody, you kind of have to check a lot of things at the door. You got to throw a lot of stuff to the side, and you have to be real with people. You have to be honest. A lot of and honesty is probably the hardest thing that a lot of people face with dealing with relationships. But honesty, obedience, just being straightforward with people and being okay with it, is one of the biggest things. That it was hard for me. It was when getting a relationship with my wife in the beginning before we got married. There were a lot of things that I struggled with, and we had difficulty with. I had difficulty with. I don't know if she did, but those things you kind of have to check at the front door, and you have to look at the bigger picture, and I think that's the key to it. If you look at it in a small lens, then it's just like, oh, this isn't happening, and this isn't happening, and this should be it, based off of what society says. But if you really value the relationship you're trying to get into, then the bigger picture paints the greater picture for you, and it turns into a portrait, which is marriage.
Okay, Picasso.
Two things that I think are extremely important and probably should be set boundaries regardless of who you are. One is being abstinent. I mean, if that person is not your spouse, you are not supposed to be with them. So making sure that you are putting those boundaries in place, whatever your situation may look like. The second one is being mindful of the time. Like, at a certain time, sometimes you be feeling a little, right? And you be like texting or whatever, and it might go left. So really being mindful of what that time is for you or what that space looks like. I think that is a huge boundary that you guys should really think about. And then that, apart from accountability, extremely important. And having people, whether you're the guy or the girl, it doesn't matter, having on both ends people that hold you accountable.
I believe the main boundary is to have the person respect your morals and your relationship with God. Because let's say you had this journey, and then you don't want nobody to corrupt your walk. So whatever God told you what to do, what not to do, have them have that talk with them, and then just communicate with them. Then just make sure they respect your decision. With that, that's the main boundary. I think that's says it all for that one.
So I feel like the boundaries, because you have to know yourself, and so the boundaries of what you're trying to protect, you cannot leave out.
That's true.
So for me, I always believed in dating, protect your heart, protect your mind. Like, you need to just protect your heart, because when you start pushing boundaries, especially when it comes to intimacy, specifically sex, stuff starts getting cloudy. So I want to protect, just keep myself from having the rose-colored glasses, whatever you want to call them. Just not being able to see the reality of what's going on, not being able to discern what's going on. So any boundaries that I knew for myself that would taint that, I would not want to involve myself in. So main things is just making sure things didn't. I was okay with kissing, but not want to get too hot and heavy with that. Different things that you know your triggers. So setting up boundaries around that. Also, just knowing when it comes to it's like if it was gonna be like too late, or just different things that would trigger you. I would say think about those things and set boundaries around them. Not thinking like, oh, this is childish, or I'm an adult, I can do what I want. It's like, no, you're human, and the Bible says flee for a reason. Like, this is hard. Self-control is real, but also you can lose that really quickly in the heat of a moment. So not wanting to put myself in those positions. So really working hard for that. So just knowing my own triggers. I feel like once you know your triggers, just be honest and be real about that. And have accountability. I think that was the biggest thing for me. Having someone, I have a mentor, I have a spiritual mentor, that's a female, and I talk with her every week. And so basically being accountable to her, like we pray together, she knows everything about me. I would have to answer to her and answer to God. That's scary. I'm not gonna say scary enough, but that's real enough, and that should be enough. But unfortunately, sometimes we forget He there. So having her was that extra support of someone who would pray for me, and I know that I would be accountable to, and that helped me in my spiritual walk when I was single, and helps me now that I'm married as well. So accountability, I think, is big. So whether it's that one person or a group of friends that you have that can pray for you and just know what's going on, that you can be honest and real with, that won't judge you, and won't encourage you to do foolishness. Just being able to call you out on your stuff and encourage you when you're really struggling. So I would say that's my answer.
I like that.
For me, definitely, being in a relationship with Christ right now in my married season, and just really Him showing me His love on so many different levels. There are just some things that I can't tolerate anymore. I can't tolerate from myself, and I can't tolerate from the other person anymore, especially in a relationship. And so one of the biggest things is, yelling, cursing at me, things like that. It's one of those, like, once you decide to start elevating your tone, I know right there that that's a trigger for me, and that's a moment where I need to stop it, and I need to completely either walk away or I need to dead the conversation. So that's one of the biggest things for me, for my partner and even a friend, but really just in a romantic relationship. That's not something that's leading through Christ. That's not something that is embedded in love. Like, don't do that.
Absolutely. It's intimacy. Sometimes we get so afraid that, like, if I kiss or I touch, it's just going to lead to this, that, and the other. But self-control is real, and we all have it. We definitely have it within our willpower. So kissing is okay. It's a way to show intimacy. It's a way to show your appreciation, your love for somebody. So in my humble opinion, kissing is okay if you respect your boundaries. Mm-hmm. Like I said before, if you talk about things in the forefront, then things on the back end won't really be a problem. So kissing, it's great if you wait to kiss your wife or your husband the day you get married. I'm not even knocking that at all. But if you're in a relationship with somebody, it's great to kiss them too, especially if you're respecting your boundaries, you're not crossing a line into a sexual relationship and whatnot. Kissing is just another way to show your intimacy. It's another way to show your cohesiveness, and you're not really breaking any rules, in my opinion, if you keep your hands to yourself. I'll give it at that. But I really feel like kissing is a way to really, like connect and create that bond that you're building with your significant other.
Fair enough. Just keep your hands to yourself. No.
Sit on your hands. Sit on your hands.
Wait, no, that's weird.
Now listen, this kissing question is the one that I really was looking forward to answering. You know why? Because I cannot kiss anybody. I cannot just be kissing people. You know why? Because that's going to make me feel a certain way. I know me, right? I know me. Especially if you already been there, done that. I cannot kiss anybody because it's going to go left. Like, the probability is very high. So me personally, I cannot kiss. In my last relationship, I said, okay, God, if He says that He's good with kissing, I'm going to allow it. And God was like, ha ha ha, joke's on you. We started talking about boundaries. The first thing that He said was no kissing, because He knew that He would go there too. I mean, it's a real thing, guys. Extremely important for me. Like, some people can do it. I personally can't. Some people wait until they get until they get engaged and start kissing. I mean, it's really up to the individual, but personally, I cannot.
I think kissing is also it's one of those things that can lead to one thing to the next, but I don't see nothing wrong with kissing on the cheek, or it depends. For me as a man, I know if it's a certain spot on my neck, it will it'll be a bad situation. So it depends on how strong I guess the man is or whatever. But honestly, I feel like just to avoid temptation later on, I would just be safe and just do a kiss on the cheek or a little peck here and there. Um, I think that's probably safe. But if it comes to straight making out, tongue down the throat, stuff like that, then you probably shouldn't do that. But I would be just really be safe and stay on guard when it comes to kissing, and just be mindful about your relationship with God and how you want to not let that person look at you in a tempting way. Because during that process, before you get married, you want to make sure that you build in a relationship, and not the foundation of relationship is not should be based on lust or sexual activities.
So I'm gonna keep it 100. Before, kissing wasn't a big deal, and then there was another season in my life where I was like, well, maybe that should be a boundary, because things can get heated, and just maybe that could be a trigger. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, so I feel like I changed. It was like, first, I didn't even think about it. Secondly, I was like, maybe we should set boundaries around it. And then toward the end, I was like, because when we were dating, we kissed, but I just felt comfortable enough to kiss with you where it wouldn't, because we were on the same page, and you wouldn't push that. If anything, to be honest, I would try to push you, and I'm not trying to lie. That's bad. But you definitely didn't, and I appreciate you for that. So there was times that I would try to push that, and you were like, nah, bro, chill. So I feel like I have changed on my view of that, and I really feel like it's a case-by-case basis. I don't feel like you can just say, no, this is the standard. I feel like do what you feel led to do, and do what you feel like you can handle, and know yourself, and be honest with yourself. I think that is the most important thing, no matter what comes up and what we're thinking about is a boundary or not. It's not really one size fit all when it comes to kissing, in my opinion. That's my opinion. I know some people might agree or disagree. I just really feel like be honest with yourself. Stop being like, I'm grown, I can do what I want. Be honest. If you know it's a struggle for you, and you know it's a struggle for your partner, maybe y'all should not be doing that. I'm just saying. But if it's not, then cool. And if somebody, is able to be a little stronger, then cool. But be careful with that, because people have their moments of weakness, and you don't want to just depend and put it all on the other person. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. And I would say also, don't be wandering hands and doing all the extra stuff.
Sit on your hands.
You don't gotta do all that.
Kissing is, a slippery slope. I think that's where it comes into play of you really knowing yourself and really knowing what you are capable of. If you feel like, you are at a space where you can kiss up to a certain point and you're still okay, I think it's okay. I think also, though, being mindful of, a lot of times we walk lines where we think we can handle it, we think we're strong enough to, and then we fall, and then we're like, oh crap, why did I even? And so it always starts with the small things. That's what I've really learned over my times of being in a relationship, and failing every single time, of thinking that I get to a certain point and then I'm like, oh, I'm good, I can handle this is fine, like, a little touch here, a little kiss there, that's no problem. And then next thing I know, it builds up, and then I'm at a place where I'm like, oh crap, dang. So I think that it can be done safely. I don't think there's any harm in it. I think, you just have to have boundaries within boundaries.
I see what I did there. I took a deep breath. Because that's what you got to do. Like, I've been in those trenches. I've been in those situations
Not the
before.
trenches.
I've been in the trenches. And no, I mean, in all honesty, you really have to collect yourself. You have to really step back and think, like, what are the consequences? What are the ramifications? What are the outcomes of me acting on emotions instead of, thinking with my mind? So we're human. Nobody's perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get in these situations and things take over and you're like, I'm going out of the way. Or this is what I want to do. But you really sometimes just have to step back and think about the long run. The consequences of the decisions we make. It's not always easy, but it will be easier if you step back and think before your actions, before you take actions and you think about it later, if you catch my drift. So sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, take a deep breath. Think about what's in front of you. Think about what can be behind you. Think about the future. Think about the present. Don't worry about the past because that's behind you. But really think about your actions. When you act before you think, you're leaving things in the air, to go either way. But if you think before you act, you pave a path, for your destiny. So I'm gonna leave it there.
A whole path for the destiny.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel real philosophical right now.
I was like, whoa, what?
Real philosophical, but that's real. Like, sometimes you really just have to, even though your mind and your heart and whatever else might not be in agreement, if you lead with your mind, you can't go wrong. Just think before you act.
So usually what happens, and I do not suggest this for anyone, is I kind of let it play out or see like how it's gonna go and wait until the last minute to say something. But God has really kept me in the fact that I don't usually end up having to say anything. The guy will say something before I even realize that something's going in that direction. But one thing that I definitely do and try to always do is remember those accountability partners. And I'm very candid about, hey, I am struggling with this and I need prayer. About a month ago or so, I found myself in a situation and I told my friends, I was like, look, I need y'all's prayers. I need help. And not only did they pray for me, but they let me have it a little bit. And that in addition to, taking action and saying, okay, what do we have to do to keep you? Because they know how hard I've worked to get to the place where I am now. And so really having those people that hold you accountable are extremely important, not just for you, but for your partner as well. Because what can happen is that if you guys end up getting married and something goes left, he has to be able to talk to his boys, and his boys need to be the ones that tell him, hey, you were talking to her a little bit too long, moving along. You each need that accountability on each end. So that is extremely important.
So the first thing pop in my mind, right, is to flee from temptation. Now, what does that look like? To me, that can be, let's say you and somebody, it's about to go down, something about to happen, right? And just make sure that you have somebody that you can turn to, that you can call when it comes to that situation. It's always good to have an accountability partner, especially when you are a Christian man or a woman or whatever. Make sure you can have somebody that you can always depend on. Even you can reach out to that can give you advice. Secondly, I would say sometimes we can feel convictions too. So make sure you always listen to your convictions that God gives you. Sometimes we get that feeling deep down in our stomach, that's like giving us that warning, hey, don't do this. So always don't ignore what God is telling you, even if it's towards the heat of the moment. That happened to me many times. I say that, but I didn't listen. But that was in my past. But when I got saved, I started listening more. And then just think about how crucial your relationship is with God to be obedient in that sense. You know, you don't want to do anything to separate your relationship with God.
I'm gonna keep it 100. Honestly, I sucked at that. So it was just better for me to not put myself in a position to let any boundaries be broken, because there was no coming back. There was no breathing. There was no think with your mind. No. I personally know myself. That's what I've been. A lot of the answers to these questions for me have been know yourself. I know myself, and if it go there, I ain't gonna be able to bring it back. Like it's literally Jesus himself going to bring it. He can do it. I'm not even trying to be funny. So it was always just best for me not to even put myself in a position for it to go there. And I would say when we were dating, the one thing that was so amazing about dating you is that your self-control was really, really good. And I have to give him that, and really helped me and called me out on a lot of my stuff, on me feeling like, oh, I can just depend on his self-control and not have any for myself. So yeah, I would say definitely through our dating relationship made me realize how important it was for me not to even just put myself or him in that position. Because even though you were really good in the times when I would play too much to stop it, that wasn't fair for me to do that to you. So I realized that and just made sure that I didn't keep doing that and put him in that awkward situation, and put me in that place where I knew I wasn't going to be able to stop myself. Because I didn't want to sometimes. That's messed up, but I'm going to be honest.
That's honesty. But I know this ain't my segment of the questions, but we're going to wrap it up with this. The whole point of it all in Christian dating and Christian relationships is being equally yoked and being on the same page.
Exactly.
You have to have communication. You have to have understanding. And you have to have, the self-control. That's a big part of it.
Before, and not really defining clearly what boundaries were for me, before in relationships, I would kind of just allow it to happen. Well, not kind of, I would allow it to happen. I would probably break down crying, or I would respond on their same temperament, which is whether it's high or low. And I'm thinking in regards to like yelling and things like that. But in regards to sex, like I said earlier, in regards to sex, I just would feel conviction, and I would just feel so low. And then I would try to say it to my partner, like, hey, this happened and it makes me feel this way and I feel convicted. But I had to understand that what convicts me may not convict this person. And so I can't put all of that pressure and that weight on the person that I'm dating if they don't believe the same thing. If sex is not that big of a deal to them, but it is for me. So learning that. And so now I am in a space, like I've said, I am in an unmarried season, so I have not done anything sexually impure at all. But going back to the situation with my friend, we've been friends over 10 years, went to college together and everything, and he was over here, and it got to the point where he just, I was being very clear, he did this thing where he would try to hold me to my past, I always bring up my past, and so I spoke up in that moment to set that boundary of like, don't do that, that makes me feel uncomfortable. And he got to yelling and raising his voice and everything, so I had to immediately speak up, express that I was not comfortable with that, and I had to remove him from my personal space and my personal peace. And I had to let him know, you're no longer welcome at my place. You're just not, because you crossed that line and you shouldn't have did that. So those are my questions.